Welcome, everybody. It is 7 o'clock Eastern Time, and this is our second live stream session for the Inimitable Jeeves from Mrs. Keep's Learn from Home class. And while we're waiting for everybody to log on, I just sort of want to give you a very brief overview of what we're going to talk about today. So basically, this little chat here is going to be focused on characterization in the Inimitable Jeeves chapters 1 and 2. I'm trying to avoid spoilers at the end of chapter 2 because you guys aren't actually assigned to start that chapter until tomorrow. So you can just sort of hang in here, and I don't want to spoil you with what happens. But we're going to talk a little bit about some of the characters that show up a little more in chapter 2. And we're going to talk specifically about social status because as I was looking at questions and answers throughout this week, as you guys have worked through the text, I realized how very different the setting of 1920s, early 1920s London is to what you guys are used to. So, to kick it off, I should probably introduce myself. I mean, you guys watching know who I am, but if other people are watching the video, I'm Mrs. Keep. Hello. And I am making this video specifically for my Learn from Home students during our fun times with the coronavirus. So, to kick us off, let's start out just kind of an overview of how to access the lessons. Almost all of you guys are jumping in on that and doing a great job. However, some people are still kind of struggling with where to find their work. Hello, folks who've joined us. Um, so, not that. Here we go. Okay. So, what I'm going to do is show you our website, which is updating right now. There we go. Visit the page. Okay, so this is our classroom website, whkeep.wordpress.com. You'll see our big, pretty owl. And as you scroll down, most of you guys have done a great job with this already. You will see the plan, and then day by day, you'll see lessons. There's a daily question every day. Some of you are choosing to check in with me every day and do that question either through Remind or through email or through the Google Doc. Any of that is fantastic. Some people are texting it to me. That works too. Thank you. Some of you guys are choosing to go on, do the reading when you have the time, and answer a bunch of questions all at once, and then focus the rest of the week on your other schoolwork. And that is fine too. I even have one, thank you, Danya, who's already done all the way through the next 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks of lessons. So that's phenomenal, and thank you. So you can see each day there's the daily question, like I said, and there's the reading assignment. Now today you should have been finishing up. Let's scroll down to today. Today is the Wednesday the 8th. You should be finishing up chapter 1 of the Inimitable Jeeves and moving into chapter 2. No wedding bells for Bingo. Poor Bingo. You kind of get a feeling for what's going to happen there. And you're starting chapter 2 tomorrow. Okay? So finishing chapter 1 today, starting chapter 2 tomorrow. And then if you keep scrolling down, guess what? There is a TV version of this story. Now, it takes there's another plot happening in this TV. They've kind of combined two stories rather. So it takes until about 6 minutes in before you see what we read. So just hang on. If you've watched it and you're like, wait, that doesn't, yeah, hang on. About 6 minutes in, you start to see what we've read. It's not exact, so read and do the questions and then watch. And then underneath is the next 2 weeks. We're going to read chapter 3 and chapter 4, which is another short story. Same author, same characters, but another short story. And then you have, again, a daily question and your reading. Okay? Once we're finished through the 17th of April, we know that school is closed until at least May 1st. Um, my feeling is we're probably going to go longer than that, but this is where we are right now. Um, we will be doing a new short story by Agatha Christie, a mystery one. So I'm looking forward to that. Okay, so before we get into that, good afternoon, Shelley. Good evening. Thanks for watching. Let us take a look at where do you find the daily questions, because some people got stuck on that. So right here is the group Google Doc, and it's listed next to every daily question. Our second short story will have a new Google Doc. So when you get underneath the video and you get into the next 2 chapters, there's still a link and it takes you to a new one. But when you click on that, you're going to see this. Now, I'm not going to scroll down because people's names are on there and they may or may not choose to have privacy. However, you can see actually people are editing it right now, and well done. Okay, excellent job. So we are going to show you now. Let's talk a little bit about the characterization in this story. Okay, and hello everybody. Here I am. Our two lovebirds in this story are Bingo and Mabel. And I know my video is probably really glitchy. I'm not worried about it. If I make a funny face and I get stuck like that, oh well. So here you have a picture of a young man who's not unlike Bingo, and a young waitress who's probably not unlike Mabel. P.G. Wodehouse based this tea room, and basically it's a chain of tea rooms, which are inexpensive restaurants, on a really, really common chain of tea rooms called the Lion's Corner Houses. And they were, well, basically all over London in the turn of the century, the 1900s through to the 1930s, 40s. Extremely popular, had decent food at inexpensive prices, but, you see, Bingo and Birdie are very rich young men. I mean, Bingo relies on his uncle for his money, but he is essentially still a very rich young man. And they're used to going to fancy hotels and fancy restaurants and drinking cocktails and drinking wine and partying with girls who are exciting and adventure and smart and funny and also have money. And Mabel is not any of that. Mabel is a working class girl who has a respectable job. Being a waitress was respectable, but it wasn't classy, if you know what I mean. I mean, even now, if you say, oh, I waitress at Olive Garden or something like that, if I waitress at Beef O'Brady's, you'd go, oh, okay, well, that's a decent job. It's a respectable job, but it's not a fancy job. Okay. Now, so that sets up this class distinction between Mabel, who's working class, and Bingo, who's rich and aristocratic and basically doesn't have to work. And then we've got Birdie, who's Bingo's friend, and again, he doesn't have to work. Okay? And then we have Jeeves, who is a servant to Birdie, but also has a lot of power in their relationship. And you guys caught on to that as you were reading, I suspect. Jeeves basically tells Birdie what to wear and whether or not to bet on horses and gives him advice. And when he doesn't follow it, usually bad things happen. So Birdie's kind of learned to rely on Jeeves. So even though Jeeves is lower class because he's a servant, he's also a servant to a very rich young man, and he's a servant who's highly trusted and who actually has a lot of power in his home. So he has a very different sort of position here. Now, why am I talking so much about class and class distinction? Well, as you've noticed, it's the core of the story. You know, Bingo loving Mabel and trying to convince his rich uncle to, one, give him more money, and two, okay his marriage. All of that, the only reason that the uncle would be against it at all is because she's working class and she doesn't belong, with Bingo's class. Okay? Now, I've got a line here. One gives us a feel for the language, but two, it, in a nutshell, puts together Jeeves's plan. So this is right from the end of chapter 1, and this is Jeeves speaking. If young Mr. Little were to read day after day to his uncle a series of narratives in which marriage with young persons of an inferior social class were held up as both feasible and admirable, I fancy it would prepare the elder Mr. Little's mind for the reception of the information that his nephew wishes to marry a waitress in a tea shop. So that's setting up the core of the problem. Okay, so far, does anyone have questions for us? I see lots of folks viewing. Thank you very much. Anybody got some questions for me? You can type them right into the chat and I can see them. Yes, absolutely. I can text you the original questions. Shelley asked about sending her a copy of the original questions so she can do them and email them. Yes, I will send that to you as a Word document. Then you can type right into them and send them right back to me. No problem. I will make a note for myself. So when we get off the chat, I will do that. Okay, very good. Anybody else have questions? All right, as you guys type, I'm going to talk a little bit about characterization. We know who these characters are because of how they speak, how they dress, how they behave towards other people, and how Birdie sees them. Because Birdie's our narrator here, and he's a lovable idiot. He really is. He's a lovable idiot. And he thinks the best of people, and just bless him, right? But he's really funny, and you can tell he's had a very good high-class education because of his references. Yes, I'm glad we get to communicate too. I'm very glad. I miss you guys. It's really hard not seeing my students every day. And I know you guys miss each other as well. I am going to try maybe next week when we're all into a good routine to get a Zoom call or something like that going on so that you guys can actually see each other and talk to each other instead of just me sort of lecturing and reading comments. Thank you. Okay, so thinking about how Birdie sees the world, the fact he's an optimist, the fact he's kind of a goofball, and the fact that basically Jeeves has to tell him what to do. He wants to bet on this horse, and Jeeves says that's a bad idea, and he wants to wear a, what was it he wanted to wear in this one? Oh, that's right, very bright. Is it shirts that he wants to wear? Something mauve. Oh, shirts, yes. He wants to wear these purpley pink shirts. And Jeeves has told him no. No. Uh, um, and we're going to see that come back in chapters 3 and 4, that there's something Birdie wants to wear, and he puts his foot down about it, and we'll see how that plays out. So Birdie's goofiness and his amiability just sort of, what's the word I want? Enmeshes itself into the narrative, because we're seeing everything through his eyes. It would be really interesting, and I'd love to read it if someone were up to writing that kind of thing. I'd love to read this story through Bingo's eyes, or through Jeeves's eyes, or even through Mabel's eyes, like get a different perspective on what's going on. Because I think the story would feel very, very different if we did that. The T word. Good question. Which T word? Which does what does that word mean? Which word? Enmesh? There we go. My audio is sometimes better when it's not trying to do video at the same time. Is that any better? We'll go back to that screen. I hope the... Nope, can't hear me at all? Okay. Okay. I'm hoping other people can hear me now. Excellent. Thank you. All right. Yeah, this computer I'm working on doesn't like the software and the audio and the video all at once. And my school computer won't let me put on the software. Fun times! You guys aren't the only one fighting with that. Okay. Let me think about what else I need to tell you about Jeeves, and then I will take questions, either about the story or, kind of about school or access or whatever's going on. We're going to run about 25-30 minutes today, just like we did last week. And then I will put this video up onto YouTube just like I did the last one. It might not make riveting viewing, but it does make it accessible for folks who can't watch the live stream. And for folks who are operating on school computers and things that will not let them watch a live stream. Okay, so what do I want you to come away with? Oh, sorry, Shelley. What does the word enmesh mean? The word enmesh, thank you for asking again. The word enmesh means to get tangled up or embedded into. Think about like seaweed in a fishing net, like all woven together. So the Birdie's perspective and the way he thinks and what he focuses on is inseparable from the way the story is told and what we learn about the other characters. Does it make sense? Okay, so what do I really want you to know about Jeeves? I want you to take away the fact that this is funny. This is a silly piece of literature. Good. I'm glad that made sense. Thank you. And it's just goofy. And it's meant to be. We're meant to like Birdie, but also know he's kind of dumb. We're meant to like Jeeves, but also know that even though he's the servant, he's the brains of the operation. And you guys have seen a lot of those dynamics on television where someone who's supposed to be lower class or somebody who's supposed to be a servant or something like that is actually the one in control. And that inversion or flip from normality is part of the thing that builds the humor here. We're supposed to kind of like all the characters, but we're also supposed to see their flaws and think they're a little bit silly and think their problems are just a little bit silly. And that's absolutely okay. And that's actually why I picked PG Woodhouse to do for our first 4 weeks, because he's light. Um, you guys have had enough stress at home and you're going through a really stressful time. And so I wanted you to just have a character, a little bit of challenge with the vocabulary. And I recognize that the vocabulary and the slang and the sentence structure is a challenge. Once you get used to it, it will be easier. I promise. And I'm also going to put up on the website, because I found a really good resource, a a reference that goes chapter by chapter for all the pop culture stuff. So, when he in chapter 3, I think, references a painting, might be chapter 2. And you know, well, okay, you haven't heard of the soul's awakening. What does that even look like? This has references and it can help. So I'm going to put that up on the website as well. Um, but this is just a fun story. It's a goofy little love story with a clever guy and a plan to figure things out. So I wanted you to have a little challenge with the vocabulary, but not have to stress about the characters, not have to read anything that's really depressing, um, and just kind of have something that's a bit fun. And then the next two chapters are not exactly a mystery because we solve it almost immediately, but there's a thing that happens that has to get solved, um, and that's actually going to lead us into the mystery story that we'll read after that. It's a nice transition. I'm feeling clever, clever Mrs. Keep. All right, I have waffled on for, oh my goodness, nearly 20 minutes. This is what happens when I don't get to lecture in class. I miss talking to you guys about literature and stuff I really like. Okay, for the last few minutes, I will take whatever questions you've got. You can type them right into chat, about the work or about school in general or accessing, your assignments or anything like that. Who's got questions for me? I will hush and look at questions. I will not forget. Thank you. I have written. I will go back here for just a second. I know this is probably going to kick my volume out. There we go. I will not forget. Um, Anybody else got questions? All right. I will start wrapping this up. You guys are doing great. You're working hard. I absolutely appreciate it. And I have been sending out on Remind just a little like hey guys, how is everybody doing? That kind of thing. And BDTV is doing, they're trying to do at least one show a week. And so I'm sending out a link to that. If you guys feel like, you kind of miss school and you kind of want a little normality, and normally we watch that every day. So I'm sending out links to that. The other thing I want to remind you guys is if there is a teacher you haven't gotten in contact with yet, email them. They might think that they're emailing you, and maybe you're not on their list because they've taken people off and put people on and everything else. And I don't want to worry you, but if there's a teacher you haven't heard from yet, email them. Okay. Um, and if there's somebody who you know about who has me as a teacher, and they don't know what to do, or like they don't know what the assignment is or anything like that, um, have them either call me or text me or email me, um, and or they can you can give them the remind code, which is at Mrs. Keeps, so at MRSKEEPS to 81010, and that will get them in touch with me. So if you have anybody who like is in my class for whatever period, all of the periods are doing the same thing, and they haven't been in touch with me, send them my way. I've got a short list. Most of you guys have been great, but I have a short list of folks who haven't gotten in touch with me yet. And if you know somebody who, like you're friends with on Snapchat or whatever, and hey, do you know what we're doing for Mrs. Keep? Hey, here's the website, whatever. All right. Any other questions before we wrap it up? You guys have been good listeners. All right. Thank you very much. I'm going to wrap this up, and I'm going to tell you the same thing I always tell you: be smart and be safe. And I love you guys, and we will talk together soon. All right?